So we're going to do lesson 9.4 part 2. We're going to be graphing inequalities. In 9.4 part 1, we learned graphing quadratic functions. What we learned in 9.4 part 1 was what a quadratic function was, A, B, and C. We learned how to find the vertex. So who can raise your hand and tell me what the standard form of a quadratic function is? Ty?
AX squared plus BX plus C.
Okay, and at the very beginning it should be something equals AX squared.
X equals
Y equals AX squared plus BX plus C. That's the standard form. A, B, and C will always be numbers. Y'all remember that? Okay. What was the formula that we used to find the vertex?
X equals
Negative B over 2A. Okay? So that would be how I find the vertex. Now, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking problems like this and actually graphing. What does the graph look like of a quadratic function?
Up or down.
It's a parabola, which is a U-shaped graph that goes up or down. How do I know if the parabola opens up? If what letter? A is positive, it opens up. If A is negative, it opens down. Okay, that's all stuff that we learned in 9.4 part 1. So I want you to write down these three instructions. Step 1, find the x-coordinate of the vertex. Find the x-coordinate of the vertex. Well, let's use the quadratic equation that I gave you right here up top, which is y equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. Let's label A, B, and C first. What is A in this problem? 2. What is B? Negative 4. And what is C? Negative 1. Okay, so step 1 is they want us to find the vertex. The vertex is negative B over 2A. What if B is already negative? It's going to be a positive because it would be negative 4. So 4 over 2 times what was A? 2. 4 over 4. What's 4 over 4 equal? 1. So there's the x value of my vertex. Now, what we learned in 9.4 is once we get that, we can plug it back into the original equation and find y. But because I want a whole parabola and not just the vertex, we're not going to do that just yet. We are going to, in step 2, make a table of values. What that means is the vertex is the middle point of a parabola. It's either the highest or the lowest point. All right, so in our table of values, we're going to do two numbers that are smaller than our vertex and two numbers that are larger than our vertex. So we make our table here. We're going to put that x that we found in the middle, which was 1. What are two numbers that are smaller than 1? 0 and negative 1. What are two numbers that are larger?
Negative 2, negative 3. No,
Larger. Positive 2, positive 3. Okay? You always put the vertex in the middle. So which is 1. What we found right up here. So now that we know the values that go in our table for the x, we are going to let our calculators do the work for us to find the y values. So this is what you're going to do. I have a Casio calculator here, so we are going to take it and we are going to put it in table mode, or what we call function mode. So you're going to want to hit the mode button, which is right beside the on, and then you come up with 3 options. And we are going to hit, for this calculator that I'm working with, option 3, which is called table. So we hit 3, and automatically what pops up is f of x on our calculator. This is what your calculator should have on it right now. So that's how we know that we've got it in the right mode. What I'm going to do now that I have it in that mode, I can take the original equation that they gave me, which was y equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 1, and I'm going to plug it into my calculator. So now in order to plug in that original equation, I actually have letters. So I'm going to have to find out how to put letters in my calculator. But first I have 2. So I'm going to put in 2. Now I have x squared. You cannot just use the x squared that you see on your calculator. We're going to have to hit the alpha key, which is right here up top beside the shift. So hit alpha. That gives us alphabet letters. And in the red, I'm going to look for the letter x, which is right above the parenthesis sign. So now I have my x. And now I'm going to do squared. So hit the little x squared button. So in your calculator now it should say 2x squared. Now I'm going to keep typing the rest of the problem, which is minus 4. Then I need another letter, so I hit alpha x minus 1. So in your calculator now, this is exactly what it should say. F of x equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 1.
So the first one always has to be squared?
Yes. We'll always have an x squared in a quadratic because that's what makes it a quadratic function. Okay, so now that we have our equation, we're going to press the equals. What comes up is on your calculator, you should see something that says g of x equals. That is for if you were to be given another equation, which we don't. We're only working with one equation. So I can just press the equals again, and it'll just skip over that. So press equals whenever you see that. Then it's going to say start with a question mark. They want to know at what value does your chart start at. So I look at the very first or the smallest value for the start. What does our box start at? -1. So in my calculator, I'm going to type in -1. So type in -1, and then you press equals. Then it's going to ask you, okay, where does your chart end? Say it's in question mark. So we end at 3. So we're going to type in 3 and then press equals. Then it's going to say step question mark. All that means is, are your values going up by 1, by 2, by 3? So every value is going up by 1. So -1 plus 1 is 0, 1 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 2, or 1 is 2. So it tells we know that step is 1. It should be 1 already in there, so just press equals. And then we have our chart. You see the x is all the values that you should have, and then the f of x column is all of the values that you will put in for y. So what is the f of x for -1? Or the y? 5. For 0, -1. For 1, -3. For 2, and for 5, or for 3, 5. If you notice, these values will always repeat themselves. It'll never be anything different, as long as you do 2 numbers smaller, 2 numbers larger. Okay? So now that I have my table of values, I can actually graph my parabola. So on a piece of graph paper, okay, I'm going to change to the graph paper here to erase some of this stuff. All right, and I'm going to use this chart. Okay, so we are going to label our graph. Okay, so here's our graph. So we are going to place our first point. Each one of these represents an ordered pair. So I'm going to go to -1 on the x and up 5. So I place my first point. Then 0, -1, so I stay on the origin and I go down 1. Then 1, -3. It's my vertex. Then 2, -1. And 3, 5. And now I'm just going to draw my line through. And there is my parabola. Now you always want to make sure you put your arrows on the end of your parabola to show us that it does keep going up. So that's exactly how we are going to graph our parabolas. Now we'll do more of these so that the more practice you have, the better you are. Okay, so the next one that we are going to do is negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 1. So what I want to do is let's label A, B, and C before I even get started so I know exactly what I'm dealing with. What is A in this equation? Negative 2. What is B? 4. And what's C? 1. So step 1 to graphing is to find the what? Well, we got A, B, and C, but after finding A, B, and C, vertex. Very good. The formula to find vertex is negative B over 2A. So I just plug in the numbers that I have. What's B?
4.
4. So I'm going to plug in negative 4 because that's what the formula says. And then 2. And then what's A? Negative 2. John, so what is the vertex going to be? Negative 4 over negative 4, which is positive 1. Okay? So now that I know the vertex, I know the middle number for my chart. So I'm going to do an X and a Y. So we put the 1 in the middle. What's two numbers smaller than 1? 0 and negative 1. Two numbers larger, 2 and 3. Okay? Now, it just so happened that last time these were the same numbers, but that won't be every single time. Okay? So now is when we get out our calculator. Make sure it's in the right mode, so it's in the table mode. It says f of x, and we're going to type in the equation that we started with, which is negative 2, then I hit alpha x squared plus 4 alpha x plus 1. Then I press equals. Once I do that, it's going to say g of x, which I don't have a second equation, so I press equals. What is the start value of this table? Negative 1, so I type in negative 1. What is the end value of the table? 3. So I type in 3. What's the step always going to stay? 1. So we just press enter or equals. And then that should give me my table numbers. So I have negative 5, 1, 3. So what are the other two numbers going to be? 1 and negative 5. So they will always repeat themselves. All right, now let's graph this. So I draw my coordinate plane.
Do I have to put it on?
Yes, it has to be on graph paper. Okay, so here's our graph. Where is my first point going to be? Negative 1, negative 5. So I go to the left 1 and down 5. Then my next point is 0, positive 1. So I stay at the origin and I go up 1. Then I have 1, positive 3, so to the right 1, up 3. Then I have 2, 1, so over 2, up 1. And 3, negative 5. So I just draw my lines of the parabola. And there it is graphed. Okay, so the last one is going to be the exact same thing. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to do it on your own. And in just a few minutes, we'll come back on and we'll work it out and see what you got. All right, so let's begin working. So the first step is to do what? Right, A, B, and C. Okay, so what is A? 1. What is B? 2. And what's C? Negative 3. So then, after I write A, B, and C, what do I do? Find the vertex. X equals negative B over 2A. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 over 2 times 1. So I get negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. Now what do I do?
Plug it into the
Table of values. Okay. So we put what number in the middle of the table of values? Negative 1. What two numbers are smaller than negative 1? Negative 2 and negative 3. What two numbers are larger? 0 and 1. Okay, so now I get out my calculator and I'm going to type in alpha x squared, then plus 2 alpha x minus 3. Press equals. Then I have g of x, so I just press equals and I skip it. What is the start value of this table? Negative 3. What is the end value? 1. The step is always going to be 1, so I press equals, and then it gives me my numbers.
Teachers, please dismiss the middle school.
You're going to plug in 0 for negative 3, negative 3 for negative 2, negative 4, then I just repeat, negative 3, 0. Okay? All right, so now we just have to graph.